yeah, I started, I went in the Navy right out of high school. So I didn't go to college, no formal education in that sense, but very, self-educated, worked in restaurants and construction. The only two things I did before the military. Did retail in the military, got out, worked in restaurants and construction after that until 1997. So I got out of the military in 85. In 1997, I started my first real business. It was a construction company, little remodeling handyman company on the Outer Banks of North Carolina. I know you know where that is because the Philadelphia, New Jersey, New York, that's our number one renter and owner demographic. Well, number one renter demographic for the Outer Banks, big summer vacation destination, rental homes. So got my start there as a remodeling handyman contractor, did $250,000 my first year. 7 years later, we were one of the largest builders and developers in the area and doing about $30 million a year. Sold that company, started 12 other businesses along the way, built them up, sold them off. Some were, trades businesses, pool spa landscaping, electrical company, hurricane shutter company, painting company, had a gymnastics, trampoline, cheerleading school, a bunch of different things, restaurants, all kinds of stuff. So I'm just a serial entrepreneur. So my whole thing was I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad back in, probably 97 timeframe, 98. And I did not get real estate out of that book like a lot of people do. What I got was I wanted to be Rich Dad. I wanted to be the guy that everybody came to with deals, opportunities, and he owned everything. He taught everybody. So that's who I wanted to be. So that's what I did. So I started that company and started all these other companies doing the same thing Rich Dad did with and through other people, leveraging time, talents, and resources of others to do bigger deals and to do more deals. So I owned a bunch of companies and, did a bunch of real estate deals, but it was all, through other people. Real estate's always been my main investing vehicle until 2009 when I got into the markets for the first time, stock markets. But anyways, that's a different story. So my first deal, right out of the gate was I flipped a lot. I had a friend of mine that was a realtor and he said, hey, there's a lot over here that we can buy. You put up all the money, I'll do everything else and we can flip it and make, 30 grand, whatever it was. I think it might have been a $100,000 lot. And I said, we can do that. And he said, yeah. I said, okay. So I put up the money, 100 grand, and 30 days later, he had it sold for 130, 135. We split the money, and I thought, man, this is awesome. So it kind of turned the light bulb on to where I understood there was a lot of value in land, and there was, you could flip real estate. I didn't really know that was a thing. I mean, I didn't know. So I started doing, those types of deals, and I was doing some work for some guys that were buying big beach houses and renovating them, and then renting them out and then selling them. And so I started learning from those guys and said, hey, I want to do this too. And they said, well, do a couple of these deals and maybe we'll teach you. So I started learning from them, started doing, that on my own. And then I learned how to be a spec builder from a friend of mine who was a developer out of Northern Virginia. He came down and taught me how to build spec houses. And, I was the builder and, that's the way it was supposed to be. He was supposed to put up all the money. I was supposed to do everything else. And then we were going to split the profits. Turned out I ended up putting up the money, signing on the dotted line, and he took total advantage of me and cost me about $250,000 over a few years period. But I learned a great lesson. I still made probably about the same, but, I lost about that as well in what we were supposed to split. He ended up refinancing the houses and without even telling me and kept them. And we ended up settling, but it was a big mess. Anyways, I learned a big lesson and, took total advantage of me, but it was one of the best lessons I ever learned. And then I started building spec houses and I would go and, my whole position going back to the lot flip was, I knew if I could tie up the land and control the land, that's where the profit was. That's where I could make the money. The vertical was just extracting the value out of the land. So I would go tie up lots or I'd, buy a hotel, tear it down and then flip the lots to an investor and then build them the houses. So, I was making a premium on top of the, basis in the land. And if you wanted that deal, you had to buy the land for me and you had to build with me. So we had the building company, we had a real estate company. I was a broker. And, got my license after I paid my realtor a couple $100,000 one year. I'm like, I'm getting a license, And in North Carolina, it was easy. You take the classes and you're a broker. That's all you had to do. So I had my own company and, I had a staff and then I brought on some brokers and kind of grew from there. But, that's kind of the evolution of me and my story. And, then I started just doing bigger deals and started getting into land development, started doing commercial and, those types of things and just kind of learned it all the hard way by working for other investors and developers, getting taken advantage of and investing in myself. So I did, read a lot, took a lot of courses, went to a lot of seminars, things like that. So I educated myself along the way, but man, I sure learned how to do deals and how to do business the hard way.
Yeah, that's a pretty nice experience there.
Yeah, it was really good. There's a lot of different, types of investments, different types of projects, and it was interesting. And I ended up doing a lot. I mean, at the end of the day, I did over $250,000, with my own money, my own deals, no other investors or anything. And then I'm 400 or 500 million with investors and stuff like that. So it's a lot of fun.
So like with all that, what would you say your favorite? What's your favorite part of the businesses you've been in?
I like development. I like building things. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. So I love the startup phase of building businesses. So I love getting it all up, the concept and the marketing and launching and then turning it over and letting somebody else run it, and then just kind of mentoring them along the way, which is kind of what I do now in my coaching and mentorship business. But, to me, the startup of a company is the most fun, and same thing with projects. So I'm very creative. So I'm very good at maximizing the value of a property, maximizing the density and the use, figuring out how to do things with a piece of property that, maybe get a few extra lots, maybe get some extra square footage, doing things in a creative way to maximize a property, which maximizes the value, density, size, whatever it is. So I enjoy that part, the front end of getting things going, navigating the process is very challenging. And then, getting stuff out of the ground and, building and all that. But once it's up and stabilized, I'm done. So I sell it, move on, go do another one,
Okay. Yeah. And that is a fun part, like coming up with ideas, figuring things out. Like that's
leading the team, seeing something that wasn't there the day before that evolves out of a pile of sticks. It's just, it's cool. It's a lot of fun, or stack of steel, whatever it is you're building. To me, that's what's fun. But the most interesting things that I've done are taking old buildings and making them new, whether it's a house, whether it's a building, old warehouse, whatever. I love renovating, and, that's how I started in the business. So, it's really fun to be able to walk into a building and just see what it can become. And, a lot of people have that vision, but some people don't. Same thing when you're looking at a piece of land. I can see what's going to be there before it's ever done, vividly, clearly, in detail in my mind, and that's what I enjoy about the process, that whole creative thing. And then once it's up and done, I'm over it, bored, I'm ready to go do the next one.
Yeah, that's a good skill set too, to be able to visualize something when it's not there, to try to make it happen.
Yeah, or how to, change something. So you walk into a, older house, and that's where I was, really good in remodeling, and kind of gave me an edge is, in helping an owner envision, how can I add a wing onto here that doesn't look like this thing that was just dropped on here? Or how can I, create a different environment, or open this wall to do this and that and the other. And, it's not rocket science, but some properties are pretty complicated in terms of figuring out how do you get an elevator in here without, multi-levels, without disrupting the flow of the living spaces, things like that. So I was really good at figuring those types of things out and coming up with. So my biggest thing is I'm a problem solver. And that's what I learned as an entrepreneur, where there are problems, there's opportunities. The bigger the problem, the bigger the opportunity. So I love solving problems and creative. And that's why, what I do as a coach and a mentor, is so fulfilling, because, people get stuck, and I can come in and help them with one conversation, just totally change their entire trajectory of their business, their life, whatever it is. And, that's kind of what I've always excelled at, is having these quick solutions to be able to think about, how we can get to the end goal a lot of times in ways that maybe a lot of people aren't looking at.
Yeah. When you were doing down in Outer Banks, which parts?
I was based in Kitty Hawk, Southern Shores. My office was in Kitty Hawk. I lived in Southern Shores. So that's right when you get over the bridge, if people know the area back in there. But I built, from Hatteras Island all the way up to Corolla. So it's a 90-mile linear stretch of beachfront. And mostly I specialized in oceanfront, after a certain period of time. I started at the low end, building $100,000 3-bedroom, 2-bath beach boxes. And then I evolved into doing the multi-million-dollar beach houses, and stuck with that till 2009. And then when 2009 happened, we all were put out of business pretty much instantly. And I had a bunch of properties, and, that was a lot of fun navigating through that environment. But I made it through fine. Everything worked out. And then I flipped back to building the little beach houses, because back in 2008 and 2009, financing dried up. People couldn't borrow money like they could leading up to that. So the $1 million beach house thing was done. Nobody was buying them. Nobody was building them. So I flipped to building the little beach boxes again. And, those were nice little cash purchases that people could come down and buy for $300,000-400,000 grand and not have to finance, and use them as second homes and not rent them and things like that. And it was really funny. Those, like I said, those costs at the time was about $125,000 to build those houses all in, not including the land. And, I had kitchens that were more than that in the houses I was building before 2008, 2009. So it was really funny to flip to that model. But I was making, 50 to 100K on each one of those houses. So it was like, man, I should have just been doing this all along.
Yeah. You know what? You're right too. Cause I'm from Pittsburgh. That's where we all go. Like I was just down there. We stayed in Rodan. So
Rodanthe, yeah, that's in South, and that's Hatteras Island. And, I'm a surfer, lifelong surfer. So we always went to Rodanthe and, Hatteras Island to surf because it was always bigger. And I'm a big fisherman too. And, the season was extended down there for fishing. So you kind of follow the fish north to south, in the fall and winter. But, I built a lot of those oceanfront houses that you see when you first get across the bridge to Hatteras Island, Myrtle Beach, that little stretch on the left. So I built a lot of those houses.
did you see, I was just down there. We stayed right after the pier on the left-hand side. It was down a little ways down. There were 4 houses that just fell in the water. I guess the current changed and like eroded the beach away or something.
Yeah, beach erosion is a big problem down there, and it's a sandbar, so it's a constantly moving, shifting thing. That barrier island, it protects the East Coast. So yeah, that environment's constantly changing, and houses are always falling in the ocean and moving. We used to move a lot of houses. They moved the lighthouse. That company that did that used to move houses for me. And during the heyday, there was one of the house movers who would take those houses, put them on a trailer, and drive them up to Corova, the 4-wheel drive area, and set them up there and use them for rentals.
Okay. Yes, it's an interesting place down there. It's interesting. That's where you were building.
That's where I learned it all. And, it's interesting. Construction is different. I've got a YouTube channel, and one of my most popular videos is when I'm putting pilings in for these houses. People are like, how does the whole piling thing work? So I've got a video where I show them how the pilings go in, they get washed in, and how these beach houses come together. So those are really popular. I've got one putting in a septic tank in the sand, and people are, they're like, oddly enough, I find this fascinating, but it was a neat experience, a whole different kind of construction, whole different environment. And especially during that time period. And then over the last few years, I was building some, recently before the pandemic hit. And, it's a neat environment.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really cool. Yeah. Totally different area than most places. So now, so you do coaching with people. Like what all do you help people with on that side?
Different things. So the difference is, so I have courses as well. So my whole purpose in life now, where I'm at my age and what I've reached, is I'm trying to, give back and, download all of the lessons I've learned over the years, all my experience and, everything I've learned, but put it in a way that helps people become a real estate developer or become an entrepreneur or become a real estate investor versus just technically, how do you do a wholesale? How do you flip a house? How do you do a development deal? How do you know what I mean? So they're technical in regards of what you need to know to get deals done, but they're not technical in the regards of how do you swing a hammer or how do you put utilities in or how do you design a street. So it's more about what I teach people is how do you become a real estate developer? And I have a lot of people that are doctors, dentists, professional athletes that are wanting to either retire or have retired and they want to become real estate investors and developers. And I help a lot of people grow and scale their businesses, from a real estate investing standpoint, whether it's house flippers or people that want to evolve into, new construction spec development or into commercial multifamily development. And then I have people that I'm helping in their companies in general, how to grow and scale their businesses. And I have different, kinds of businesses that I'm working with people on and helping them do. But I've got people all over the country doing all kinds of different things. So it's a lot of fun. It's, very intellectually stimulating. I have a lot of realtors I work with that are getting into investing, growing and scaling their business, getting into the investment and development side, things like that. I teach people how to raise capital, how to build that brand and position themselves to be able to attract as much capital as they want to do bigger deals than they just don't know how do I do a $50 million deal? So I show people how to do that, teach them how to do that. And, as well as the fundamentals that go along with it. But like I said, what I do and what I teach is more about how do you become that individual that could do a $50 billion or $50 million deal? What kind of company do you need to look like? What do you need to have in place? Your systems, things like that. And how do you raise the capital?
Yeah. And that's cool stuff too, because so you've been through our experiences. You already got punched in the face all the times, made the mistakes. And now someone can just come to you and just grab the course or do consulting with you. And then they could save all those years and pain from dealing with it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's 30 years of me doing everything I've done in all the different businesses, and it's marketing, it's, strategic planning, it's sales, it's, technical aspects of how to do something, how to do a transaction, how to build an investment company, all those types of things. And, it's a lot of pitfalls avoided over time. And then, like I said, for a lot of people, I have people that will only call me once or twice because they just needed one or two specific things. And sometimes all it takes, like I said, is one phone call. to solve their problem or create the momentum they needed, or just to make that little shift that they just didn't see, that just changes everything for them. And I get that over and over and over about, like, I've got one client that I've been working with that's been in real estate. He's a broker. He's a residential investor moving into commercial. And this video is on my YouTube channel as well, where I showed him how to take down a $10 million 4-office property portfolio. And he ended up doing it with no money out of his pocket, ended up with $1 million in equity and $100K a year in positive cash flow at the end of that deal. No money out of his pocket on 4 commercial office portfolio. That's one individual. I got another individual that is a dentist, and he's doing his first mixed use development. And I've helped him negotiate the land, the contracts, the pieces, the whole 9 yards to get to the point to where now he's breaking ground on it. But I saved him $3 million on the infrastructure cost of the development with one suggestion, one phone call, one suggestion. Now I'm like, why don't you do this over here? And it'll save you a ton of money, save him $3 million.
That's crazy. Hey, what's your YouTube channel if people want to check out some of the videos? Because I know you have a bunch of stuff on there.
Yeah, so it's gregdickerson.com is my website. So my YouTube channel link and everything is on there, but it's Greg Dickerson. And it's, when you Google that on YouTube, it's either me or a sportscaster that pops up, or the first 2 that pop up.
All right, so pretty easy to find.
Yeah, if you do Greg Dickerson real estate, you'll see me pop up. But yeah, so those videos are on my YouTube channel with case studies of people. I've got this couple of physicians that were multifamily syndicators, and they've never done bigger than probably a $10 or $20 million deal. Before I started working with them, they might have had 40 or 50 million assets under management. Now they're almost at $1 billion, and I've got them doing, $50 to $100 million deals in a year. So, I mean, that's the kind of momentum that I help people with and that they can gain. And a lot of people start with my courses. I have several that'll go through the courses and they get something going, and they get to a point where, all right, now I'm ready to go, and then they'll reach out from there. So the courses are good. They're short, they're video, you can also listen to them like an audiobook. There's a free app, it's Kajabi, that they're, supported on the platform. So they're really cool. And, again, they teach you how to be these things, how to do these things. And they're very short to the point. And, that's what people love about my content. It's just no fluff, no, now you need to pay for this next thing. And now you need to pay, like the whole, Fan Merrill fortune builders kind of funnel that they put you in. Before you know it, you spent 40 grand. You don't even know how to do a deal,
Yeah, you know what? That's something interesting, because I was on your website too, and your courses are normal price. You're not gouging people. I saw some on there for $97.
95. Yeah, all the courses are 95. You can get them all for 195, and that's just because, again, I'm trying to share everything that I know, everything I've learned, the lessons, so that anybody can afford that. And really, all it covers is the cost of the platform to support it. It's the technology to support it, and then I run ads as well. So it covers the cost of the ads to, help people get a hold of that access. But yeah, it's like a book. Like I said, it's like a video version or an audio version of my book. It's more expensive than a book because of the technology to support it. But yeah, they're very cheap. And that's just how I am. I'm just, trying to share everything I've learned with people. And people have done taken those courses and they've hit it out of the park just with the courses alone. Because again, all it takes is one idea. So there's nothing new under the sun. When it comes to real estate investing, all these new buzzwords like novation or, sub 2 or wholetailing or, all these different, astro flipping, all these buzzwords that people use. Nothing is new under the sun in real estate. Carlton Sheets, Ron LeGrand, they've been teaching this stuff for 50 years. Russ Whitney, when you go back 40, 50, 60 years, real estate is what it is. And it always has been, it's creative financing, it's owner financing, it's sub 2, taking title to a property without paying for it, paying the mortgage off. All these different things have been around forever, so some of the stuff isn't things that people don't know already, but it may bring something to light that they didn't think about, or trigger something that they already knew but didn't know how to apply, that makes all the difference in the world. And that's what's cool about my courses, is that they're not just this bunch of fluff and all that. They help you think in a different way and bring up creative ideas. And some of it, again, you may already know. A lot of it you won't know, depending on what you're doing, because there's some on real estate development, some on commercial multifamily, some are on residential real estate investing. That course includes building spec houses and the process of it. So I literally don't teach you how to frame a house, but I teach you how to be a developer that leads a team to build spec houses. So that's what I teach you, is how to put all that together. So I wanted to keep them affordable so anybody could take advantage of it. The coaching's a different story. That is a very, that's not cheap. That's 40 grand a year. And so you got to be at a certain level where you can afford to do that and make that investment. And that's a qualifier. Generally, if somebody isn't able to make that investment, then they're not ready for, what the one-on-one program can do for you. But, the courses I've done for that reason, so that it's very affordable for people to be able to, do that.
Yeah. And I like that too. Cause I talk to a lot of people and everyone says, hey, I want to get the knowledge out and I want to help people. And then they charge like $5,000 for the course. Like you're charging $95. It's like, okay, you're literally giving it away. It's a little bit more than a book would cost.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the next evolution is I need to get it all in writing and put some books out there. Some people would rather have a book than a course. But it's basically the same way, and it works the same way. And, if people are providing coaching along with the course, then you can justify a higher cost because, the time availability is a big deal. Same reason with the access to me, it's to be able to be available to people. Well, there's going to be an investment associated with that, but just a straight up course. Yeah. I mean, there's no reason why it should be 1,000 or 5,000 or anything like that if it doesn't have any support provided with it. And my courses even have documents that I've spent thousands of dollars on attorneys and, analysts to put together like spreadsheets and investment decks and contracts and assignment contracts and contractor contracts, subcontractor agreements, spreadsheets for estimating the cost of a house, all these different things. I mean, thousands of dollars worth of downloads that are in there too. So it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing. I was just talking with one of my buddies about books. So you can take somebody's whole life. They spend all this time writing books, creating training. You can buy them for like a book, $10-20. It's like, and I don't think people realize that you can get all that knowledge in a short period of time by just taking someone else's experiences, which is like what you're talking about.
And what's cool about that is it's not just me. So what those courses are, what those books are, you just referenced, and every book you read, every course you consume, it's not just that individual, but it's everybody that individual has interacted with, studied with, doing deals with. So like for me, it's all of the experiences I've had with all the different people I've worked with, all the different lessons I've learned, all the different books I've read, all the courses I've taken, all the deals I've done, and everybody involved in those transactions, from attorneys to banks to lenders to accountants to realtors. All of that is knowledge and wisdom that's packaged in there. And then today, with the experience I have working with people all over the world, doing all kinds of different things. And again, not just in the real estate world, but there's some people that I'm working with that have exited some companies with, $50, $100, $500 million that I'm helping them make decisions and investment opportunities and things like that. So it's, that how much is that kind of wisdom worth, in terms of the lessons that you can take from it? And yeah, you can get that, from any book. I mean, there's a great quote out there that, to him who loves to read has the entire world at his fingertips.
So true. So true. Anyone out there not reading, get to it. Right.
And like I said, I'm not formally educated, from a university standpoint, but very highly self-educated. I'm constantly reading, constantly learning, constantly consuming. Even now, even though I'm, done with the bulk of my career from that a vocational standpoint, I'm still investing and I'm still doing things, and I'm still, I'm advising other people, doing fewer, bigger deals now than I used to. But I want to stay current and relevant, and especially right now with what's going on in this time in the economy. It's a very unique time, very different than any other time we've ever had. A lot of moving parts going on from a global macro scale. So I do a lot in that arena as well, in terms of staying up to date and advising people and kind of keeping tabs on what's going on from a global macro economic standpoint.
So it's September 2022 right now. What do you see happening in the real estate space, say in the next 6 months with everything going on?
Yeah. A lot of people didn't go through 2008 and 9. So a lot of people only know boom, right? They only know the market we've been in, which is extraordinary over the last couple of years, very different than 08 or 09 run up. I mean, exponential compared to that, but it's interest rates. So there's two things that drive the real estate market. It's the capital, the availability of, and the price of it, the cost of it. That's what drives real estate deals. Without the financing and the cost of that financing, there are no deals. Without the financing, there are no deals. The cost of that financing drives the value of that deal. So commercial is all based on cash flow. Interest rates affect that greatly. Residential, it's all about payments. People are buying payments. That's why we saw house prices go so exponentially high, because rates were at 2.5%, just unheard of. So, that drove the value and the cost of what people could pay because their payment didn't change. So now rates are at 6%. So, your payment for that $1 million house at 6% is double what it was at 2.5%. So therefore, the value of that house is going to come down because people can't afford it. And it's going to take time for that to adjust. So in the real estate market specifically, the housing market is correcting. We're seeing bigger corrections. Obviously, real estate's hyper local. Every city, street, position on that street's different in every market. But in some of the markets around the country, we're seeing, big price reductions from obnoxiously high prices to begin with, or record high prices. We're seeing, reductions from there. We're seeing a lot of pressure on rent because of interest rates. We're seeing a lot of people that can't qualify, people backing out of purchases, mortgage applications are down. And that whole reduction and contraction and recession in the housing market is going to reverberate into the economy and create more pressure and slow down in the economy as a whole. That's a lot of money coming out of the economy, which is what happened in 08, 09 when the housing market crashed back then. That sucks a lot of liquidity out of the economy that's being supplied by those transactions. And, we're seeing construction now, start to come down. Builders are pulling back. They're not going to build while rates are this high because the cost metrics are out of alignment and people's affordability is way out of whack.
Yeah. And you're right. Yeah, because it is a crazy market right now. Everything was up super high. And the interest rates are going up now.
Yeah, they are. And, we can expect them to continue to rise as long as the Fed keeps fighting. So the key is inflation has got to come down. It's got to get back down to 2-3%. We have to get recession off the table or understand where that recession is going to land. How deep is it going to be? And recession meaning not just a slowdown in negative GDP and all that, but real recession, businesses closing, people losing their jobs, real recession like 08, 09 that was primarily a housing market event and a bank collapse. So there's a lot of, headwinds out there and a lot of things yet to understand. But at the end of the day, it's all about interest rates. The housing market is all about the ability to get debt, the ability to finance the deal, and the cost of that capital. So those are the two big things to watch.
Okay. So you think it's going to level out, or you think we got to hold on and enjoy the ride?
When you say level out, you mean like pricing, or what do you mean?
Well, I mean, like say on an investor stand, do you think investors on the investing side will be able to start purchasing more and people will become a little bit more motivated back to a normal, I call it a normal economy on the real estate side?
Well, so the tricky part there is inventory. So our inventory levels are at record lows still, and it's coming down because we're getting into the least amount of inventory typically in the markets. The fall and winter is when people pull houses off the market for the holidays, back to school, all that kind of stuff. And with rates as high as they are, the potential sellers are looking at that and saying, well, I'm not going to sell now because interest rates are so high and I've got nothing to buy and prices are still way out of whack. So they're just staying in place. And, 70 or 80% of the mortgages out there are sub 4%. They're long-term debt, qualified borrowers. So your motivated seller profile is just non-existent. It's just not there. So, unless that changes or interest rates continue to climb to where people stop buying, it's going to take a long time for that inventory to come back into balance. So that's the problem right now. Right.
Yeah. So now you deal with crypto a little bit too, right? Like you're in that space as well.
Yeah. So, investing, getting in and out. I mean, I'm not a maxi by any means. To me, it's a speculative risk asset, just like stocks, but way more exponential and volatile. And again, I got back in markets, crypto and stocks at the bottom of March 2020 and, rode some stuff up, got out in November, December. That's when I was telling everybody, look, it's time to pack your bags and wait for the dust to settle. And I've been making some moves in and out in stocks, but not crypto lately because crypto has just been straight down. And, it's just too much risk for the reward right now. I don't feel like it's settled or bottomed yet to where I feel like you've got exponential moves in crypto again. But there's still some pretty good moves in stocks, but nothing long-term. There's too much risk out there. It's very difficult, dangerous time to be in the markets, crypto or stocks, because it's so volatile and we're in a bear market. So, on any given day, it could drop and the floor could come out from under you or it could bounce, so it's pretty tricky navigating right now, but I'm not in anything long-term at this point. I'm waiting for the bottom to come in, and that's not going to happen until inflation's down. The Fed can stop hiking rates. They still have to roll off the balance sheet. So that means they're going to be putting mortgage-backed securities out there to the market. That's going to affect debt and credit markets. And it's going to make it more difficult to get loans for houses. And they're, unloading treasuries. So that's going to increase pressure on rates because as they unload treasuries, yields will go up, housing rates will go up. So until those things settle out and we know where we are from a recessionary standpoint, markets aren't going to bottom.
Yeah. Yeah, it is an interesting time, especially with everything going on in the world. We're just about out of time. Is there anything else that you wanted to make sure we covered on here?
No, I think we covered it pretty broad. And if anybody has any questions or whatever, I'm always happy to do a follow-up, some point down the road. And again, I apologize for my voice. It's just starting to reach the threshold of you got to stop.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you came on too. Yeah, because COVID kind of kicked your butt,
Well, it's just dry, scratchy throat. It wasn't bad. I had a terrible sore throat and I had fever and aches. And I mean, it hit me pretty hard and I haven't had it the whole time. I mean, it's the first one I've had since it started. But yeah, this one was pretty rough, but the sore throat and the dry, itchy throat's the worst.
Yeah, I hear you. Hey, tell everybody again where they can, if they want to reach out, check out your videos, check out your courses, where do they go?
Yeah, gregdickerson.com. That's where all my info is. You can follow it all there. YouTube channel. I put all that on podcast as well if you want audio. And then, yeah, all the courses are there and everything. And like I said, all it takes is one idea to really change everything in your life or your business. And you just never know where that's going to come from. It usually comes from a book, a course, a seminar, sometimes a conversation with people. But you should always be seeking that wisdom and looking for that inspiration and to trigger those ideas. And your podcast is a great one too. I appreciate you doing what you're doing.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, 100% agree on the keep reading though, because you're right. Whenever you're reading, whenever you're learning, you're thinking too, and then you might be able to connect the dots.
Exactly.
All right, everyone. So everyone listening, gregdickerson.com, GregDickerson.com. It'll be in the show notes. Hey, Greg, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Hey, thanks for listening, everybody. And go out there, crush it, and close some deals.